Stand last word, work, we don't play. DMV heat coming straight your way. No visit to the 757, we ride. Rusty Byrd got the bullpen live on.
Hey, it's the last word with Rusty Byrd, and I got the bullpen with me tonight. We are going to be covering VHSL all classes. We'll first talk about some of the regional championship games from this past weekend, and we'll preview the state semifinals in each of the classes 1 through 6. And I'm joined tonight in the bullpen by Jeremiah Davis, Danny Lewis from the 804, Coach Abrams 540, and Matt Hatfield 757, and other. So welcome to the show, guys. But first, I want you all to just let people know where they can find you. We'll start with you, Christion, Coach Abrams. Tell them about your 540 stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on 540 Athletes. That's where I kind of, I'll live tweet. It's most all 540 stuff. And I try to promote everything 540 over there, Fredericksburg area.
Cool. Jeremiah Davis, I will say a little bit for him. He is actually my co-host on these shows. Great friend, great football player. But Jeremiah, tell people a little bit about what you're doing now.
Hey, just a washed up old football player, man. Just trying to make sure that all these kids achieve at their highest ability. You can find me on social media at Coach Davis 86 or on Dry Mill Road, coaching the Loudoun County Captains.
All right. And this year, first time on the last word with Rusty Byrd, I've got Danny Lewis from the 804 Virginia Preps. Tell us where they can find you and what you do, man.
Covering high school football here in the 804. You can find me on Twitter mostly. That's where most of my content is. Occasionally I do post some stuff on Instagram, but you can find me at CRF4Dan.
All right. And Matt Hatfield, he's been on the show already on this new show quite a bit. Matt, tell people where they can find you.
Sure, they can check out all our work, including Danny's and our entire team of staff writers we have at virginiapreps.com. We're part of the Rivals Network and On3 Sports. We've got message boards, we've got free content, premium material, all things you want to see, video, archive, written stories, you name it. They can find me on social media at Hatfield Sports on the X. I think it's Hatfield Sports 2K4 on the Instagram, and also we do our podcast on Cova Sports TV on YouTube. So check it all out and like, share, and subscribe and interact with us.
All right. Good stuff. Let's get into, we're going to talk about a couple of the regional finals. I'd like to start with you, Danny. This is your first time on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about Varina Huguenot? Big Class 4 matchup in the 804.
Big is an understatement. I can't recall a game I went to where I've had to park a half a mile away. It was complete madness. The stands were full. At one point, they weren't letting folks in, and they were just watching from the hill. Great game. Verona got a 21-0 lead at the half. Caleb Weiss turned it on like he's been doing all season. Defense was on point. I feel like in the second half, Verona kind of maybe took their foot off the gas a little bit. Huguenot started coming back. Penalties played a big part of the second half. I think Verona had 13 penalties. Just silly stuff, holding, just your usual. But it was one of those games where if there was another quarter, Huguenot might sneak up and take it, but they just ran out of time to complete the comeback. Verona got a little roughed up in the second half from that Huguenot defense. I know Weiss was a little banged up following the game. Michael Farley left the game. Jabri Pearson stepped in his place. So it was a battle to the very end.
And so we'll talk about Verina's next game in a little bit, and you'll be the man for that. Coach Davis, can you tell us a little bit about being an expert and having played in the Patriot district and coaching in it? Can you tell us what you know about the Lake Braddock, West Springfield big game? Now, you told us going in earlier weeks ago, you said Lake Braddock would be the team to beat, but West Springfield, you said, watch out for them. They beat them in the last regular season game. And then in this regional final, the previous 2 years, Lake Braddock put West Springfield out. I was at those games. Tell us about this game for the regional final, West
Yeah,
Springfield.
ended off 1828. I mean, excuse me, 1428 in favor of West Springfield. I've said it for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That they came into the season with a little bit of different funk about them, and they carried it into this week. It was funny watching the Commanders game last night. That was featured as, like, they do the local game of the week. That was the featured game of the week. I feel
Oh.
as though and I talked about Coach Parker and where he came from, and I won't belabor that point because they can see the previous shows, but a lot of ingenuity comes from the struggle, and he has coached on not the most winning teams, and so you get creative. So then when you got guys, and then when it's time to get down to the nitty gritty, they put it together, and you coach from that same girth, that same area that you did when you were down, and that's how those guys played. And now it comes full circle for them playing North Stafford, right? They playing North Stafford this week. Coach Parker lives in that community. His sons went to that school, and even his sons talked about it, like it's a win-win situation for him because their alma mater will get to make it, or they'll get to make it to the state championship game. But this is a very familiar territory and matchup for them. So I'm excited for those guys.
All right. And we'll talk about their opponent. I'll let you start out and I'll just fill in. But Coach Abrams, you are in that building. You work at North Stafford, although you coach at Mountain View, another really dominant and great program in Stafford County. But tell us about that game. It was a lot points scored, but tell us what your thoughts on that game.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway that I had from this game was, and I kind of expected it, just not in the way that it happened, was big turnovers from that North Stafford defense at the right moment, all game long. You can say some of them were questionable. Okay, that's fine, but there were about 7 turnovers total in that football game caused by North Stafford's defense, and all the way down to the last drive, you can see that they were really coming after the football. I think it was Corey Lawrence on the last drive of the game who just snatched the ball out of the running back's hands. They were aggressive all game long. And then, of course, on offense, they are explosive. They're explosive. They had some great catches. Antoine Barnes had a one-handed catch and then broke tackles and got into the end zone. And this is a team that did this who lost, their best player early on in that game. Hopefully Kanai Sullivan is okay. Obviously, he had to get carried off of the field early in that one. I thought this was one of the more. I expected North Stafford to win, but they went up 49-19 at one point. I felt as though this was one of the more impressive showings this weekend, just in terms of Woodbridge is a really good team. If Jay Golson was here, he told us that you got to score 50 or 40 to beat them, and North Stafford did that, but they kind of sat on it a little bit. And Woodbridge made their plays and wound up, making the score a lot more respectable. So respect to those guys and the season that they had. But it was a great game by North Stafford.
Yeah, I was actually there. The thing, and then I called the North Stafford Battlefield game for Prince William Sports Entertainment. So I've seen this North Stafford team I've seen them 3 times. I saw the first Woodbridge North Stafford game at Woodbridge early in the season. Again, you hit on it. The key was this game was the turnovers. It was about 6 or 7, and I know I saw the one that was a lateral. It wasn't just a turnover; he picked it up and scored. And so, for them I will give Woodbridge credit. It would have been easy to drop their head and totally quit, but they didn't. We were on the text chain and we're looking at, and like you said, at one point Woodbridge only had 19, but they just they didn't quit because clearly they kept fighting. But turnovers are so critical. So I know one of the things my brother always says, is if you get like a block punt, that's more than just a turnover. It
Right.
it can really turn the tide for a game, because usually the position, the field position is putting you in, and just how everything can lay out from that. So that's one type of turnover, but they were having turnovers you don't see. You know,
Yeah.
it was fumbles, it was interceptions, but it was the lateral. And to have that many in a game that critical, it's just hard to overcome. I mean, when you get anywhere over 2 to 3 turnovers, it's hard to win. One of the things I know, if you keep track and you're watching professional football, is you can say, okay, who's the top team in the NFL? And I think in the NFC, it's the Bears, and it may be the Denver and the other. But the thing was, like, look at the Bears ratio for turnover marks. Like, they're 8 maybe compared to their opponents on the whole year, and that makes a difference.
Yep.
So I will say, as a person who picked the Woodbridge to win the game, and a person who lives in Woodbridge, I'm proud of them, the season they had. I thought they have nothing to be ashamed of. Proud of Caleb Tucker and Coach Longerbeam. So congratulations to Woodbridge on making it that far and continue to grow going forward. The next game I'd like to talk about, and I was at this one too. I'll let you start off, Mr. 540. River Bend Stonebridge, two
Yeah.
really, really great teams. I mean, one loss between them all year. But you want to touch on that game?
Yeah. This was a great football game overall. Just to watch, it was a great game. It was a classic, really. So really it starts off with kind of just two big fighters feeling each other out. Really, it was a low scoring game. Then at some point, River Bend, they put number 4, their fastest player, Camden Simmons. They just direct snap him the ball. He gets to the outside. He kind of fakes out a guy, and then he gets around the corner and he's gone. And that kind of really starts the scoring at that point. The game really picks up right at that point. Then Stonebridge does a good job. They come back down. They're getting ready to score it on a double pass. And then Cam Simmons does another great job. He comes down, he punches the ball out right before he crosses the goal line. Really a great play. Then eventually Stonebridge does score a touchdown. They come down, make it 7-6, and then right after that, a kick return for a touchdown from Cam Simmons. It's at this point, of course, that they decide to go for 2 and try to make it a 9-point game, make it a 2-possession game rather than, just taking the 8-point lead and, trying to put Stonebridge in that spot to go for 2. One thing that Stonebridge I thought did really good in the second half is they really went back kind of to that old single wing look, and it worked.
Sure did.
It
worked.
Really almost every play. I mean, it looked just like it was as if Mickey Thompson was calling the plays or something. I mean, it was fantastic. And really, River Bend had a hard time staying off the field. In overtime, it wound up going to overtime. And in overtime, Stonebridge scored first. They kicked the extra point. River Bend, they come right back down. And in 2 plays with number 14, Dwayne Stewart, he just thumps his way into the end zone.
Was a beast.
Yeah, he was a beast. And honestly, I thought they made the right call going for 2. And then if they didn't have their player false start and jump, they would have got it, and they would have won the football game. But he did jump, and therefore they had to go back those 5 yards. I think it was a bot cap, I'm pretty sure, and the kick was missed. And that was the game. Really just a heartbreaking way for it to end. But it was really a great game. 2 really just evenly matched teams.
And I understand the philosophy, but I'm like, the math doesn't always math, y'all. River Bend did not have to go for 2, because you just never know. Like, that math is all maybe assuming they're going to score a touchdown, but then what if Stonebridge goes in and just gets a field goal? Like, you just never know. And the thing that really kind of frustrated me with that, and I wasn't pulling for either. I was, whoever won, I just want the best team to win. And I think maybe the best team did win, but I thought River Bend really, like, the pressure. Understand, wanting to make it 2 possessions, but if you score at the regular 1 point, they still are forced to go for 2 if they get a touchdown. Like, the best they can do is tie with 8 points. And so put the pressure still at that point It's on Stonebridge. Stonebridge does score later on, and all they needed was to kick an extra point, and they tied it at 13. I do want to ask you one thing, though. There are some great players on both teams, but the one that stood out was number 14. He was a monster at linebacker. He looked like a guy from my era in the 80s with like the neck roll. That was my high school number 14. I told my brother to watch the game because he looked like my brother used to look in his uniform in the 80s for Bethel. But is he getting recruited? Do you know?
So I'm not sure if he has too many big offers. I think he does have a couple off college interest, but yeah, he's a senior and he's an all region linebacker. Like he's been a man, and there's actually two of them, him and number 44. They both kind of go with the big shoulder pad thumper look, and they hit. They came down and they hit all year long.
The River Bend, the size, number 75 and number 70, that they were huge. 70, he was big, but he was athletic, and he played the way you play against those teams. Like he stayed low at nose guard, turned his body to the side, and could stop stuff going in the middle. But that's when they faked going to the middle and went around. But those two players, they were tremendous. Christion, have anything you know about those big guys?
I do know their name. I know that 75 is Jalen Morris, and then it's Jimmy Sharon. That was the other one that you're talking about, and I know that Sharon's dad is on the coaching staff at River Bend. Yeah, so that I do know that.
Okay, all right. But again, great game. Last one I want to is Matt. If you could take us through that Indian River Green Run matchup. Now, I know you said it. Coach Super, when he was on, said it, but they said, "Hey, Indian River can win the region." Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I actually wrestled with my pick that we had on Virginia Preps about it. I took Indian River, and then when I walked outside and realized how cold it was and the wind whipping, and I was like, "Oh, this could be a rough day for that freshman quarterback for Indian River, Lord Malik Carew." But Lord goodness gracious, he was special. He had 2 first-half interceptions, yet Indian River got to halftime up 7-0, and we actually called that game on Cobra Sports TV. It was, I think, one of the few games that was not on NFHS because their Pixlock camera at Green Run was down. So they asked us to do it. Darnell Moore, former coach at Bayside, and Woodrow Wilson, who coached at Norfolk State years ago, and I called it. And Haru had 3 touchdown passes in the second half to 3 different receivers. I'm sorry, he had 2 of those 3 in the second half. He had the first one to Valentino Shaw, the other 2 to Elijah Boggs and Donovan Brown, the one to break the tie. But really the game-winning play was after Green Run tied it at 7-all, 60-yard touchdown to Old Dominion commit Charles Jackson from quarterback Luke Ashcraft, and then a 21-yard touchdown to Virginia Tech commit Xavier Cleveland from Ashcraft. It's 3rd and 8 at their own 5-yard line. 4th quarter, high game, 14-all. Green Run's got them pinned where they want them. They're going to get the ball back and probably win it and get to 13-0 and get to host Highland Springs in the state semis. The place is going nuts. And this kid just patiently drops back in his own end zone, scrambles away, gets a run for about 23 yards, and he led a 97-yard go-ahead scoring drive. Green Run got the ball back though after they missed the extra point, down 6 with a chance to tie it and win it. They get to about midfield, and the pocket collapses around Ashcraft, has the ball stripped and recovered by Corey Sanderlin, a big 2-way lineman force for them, who incidentally enough, 2 years ago was an all-state lineman at Maury, transferred to Indian River last year, and now he's probably going to be an all-state lineman for Indian River. And Brandon Carr's been telling me all year he's one of the most under-recruited linemen in the state, and he came through in a big way. So Indian River now sees Highland Springs, who they lost to 10 years ago, 35-10, and they got a freshman quarterback against Lauren Johnson and Coach Simmons is DC, the mastermind. It's an interesting matchup in Class 5. We've got a bunch of them. That one's going to be a neat one to see.
Okay, let's get into this. We're going to go through classes 1 through 6. I'd like to start with, I want to make sure they get their love and not just kind of throw them in at the end. Matt, can you go through classes 1 and 2 for me?
Here's the neat thing about Class 1, guys, because unless you live in those small communities and towns, you probably don't know them, but those fans live and breathe them. Yeah. You have left, it's like if you do a March Madness bracket. The 1 seeds are just about gone. You got a 1, a 5, a 3, and a 3. Rappahannock's the 1 seed who just knocked out the defending champ. They're the 1 seed of the 4, I should say. They're actually a 3 seed. So you really got a 3, a 5, a 3, and a 3. So I misspoke. But Rappahannock had lost to Essex the last 2 times they played, like 63-0. They got shut out. And they win this game against Essex, who had taken the lead in the second half. They get it done 19-16. They got a running back, though, at Rappahannock. He deserves a lot of love and some shine here, by the name of Kenneth Madison, who in the regional semifinal round ran wild on the Northampton defense. He had in that game against Northampton in the semifinals, listen to these numbers. He ran for a total of 372 yards and 6 touchdowns. 372 and 6 touchdowns.
Crazy.
Yeah. But it gets better. These, as you guys know, you remember DeMond Claiborne a couple years ago at King William that went to Wake Forest. Yeah. These numbers are outrageous for these small school teams because a lot of those kids have to play every play. They got to go both ways. They're going to run the ball 30, 40 times. We'll get to a couple guys in a second because Grayson County ran for over 500 yards in its win over George Wythe, who had beaten them late in the regular season. Now, they're probably the favorite, even though the seeds will say Rappahannock still got the defending champ in Essex. They're probably the favorite slightly in this bracket because they got to the state championship last year and they beat Rye Cove. The crazy thing about this is Rye Cove avenges its regular season loss like Rappahannock did against Essex and beats Eastside 32-12 with one kid who gets 3 interceptions. And I apologize, I don't have his name in front of me. I'll find it here in a moment. But he had 3 interceptions by himself in this game against Eastside. And then you got Buffalo Gap, who's the Cinderella. They were 4-6 this year. I didn't give them a chance, a snowball's chance, and you know what? Against Riverheads and Alta Vista, and all they did was smoke Alta Vista 52-29 and smoke Riverheads 48-21. As you guys talked about it earlier, Stonebridge runs the single wing at times. They've done it for years and years and years. What's Buffalo Gap do? The single wing. And if you can't stop it, they just wear you down. So these 2 games are actually compelling. I can't tell you with a straight face, I know who's going to win this bracket because I thought it would be Essex and Eastside at the end, and they both got upset or knocked off. Grayson Rye Cove is a rematch. It would not surprise me if it went the other way. I would be surprised if Buffalo Gap won again. They were 4-6, and I think eventually they're going to run out of steam here. Great story. So I think Rappahannock is the most athletic team left. That Grayson Rye Cove winner, though, has the chance to wear down the opposition. So if you want to go with the best athletes, Rappahannock has them. But the Grayson Rye Cove winner will be battle-tested, and they have the line play to maybe get it done against Rappahannock.
Okay. All right. That's great. Great information. I'm looking forward to those games. Class 2. Now, I know a little bit about some of these teams. Coastin, 757, and not far from Bethel High School, actually, a suburb of Hampton. And Hampton is a suburb, basically.
Man, I'll tell you this. Let me hop in real quick because listen, it's getting real interesting, and we don't got to touch on the other part of one half of that.
I know.
Union involved, right? Union involved. That's crazy going over, and that's a good football team because of the events. Like I had to go look like what's going on with game day operations, and these cats is smoking them like coach, no coach, Union by 20. You know what I mean? So so they're going in. But on the other side, you got Poquoson, and they're going to come across the state and play Strasburg. You know what I'm saying? Versus the Rams of Strasburg. And I know them because we've competed versus them in track. We went down that 81 corridor, but that's going to be a game. I mean, if you look at Poquoson, who they've played up in the area. They played up. They played a team that we're going to see in a little bit. Beat those guys. Only loss on their blemish on their record.
We're both in the Bay Rivers district, right, Matt? Poquoson and Lafayette?
Yes, and Poquoson beat Lafayette in overtime, 10-7.
Right. Yep.
They played a tough game with, was it maybe War Hill?
War Hill beat them, yeah.
Was their only loss. I mean, they've got it rolling, and I've seen them on tape. They've got it rolling, but Strasburg is no joke either. And they've been running through people, and they've got a ton of two-way dudes that get downhill. If you watch the style of play in Division II, it's like going back to it's from 77 to 97. That's what you're getting. Okay. You're getting 2 backs, you're getting a tight end, you're getting downhill, you're getting pounded and pounded some more. You're blocking down, you're getting off the ball. You might throw a hitch, okay, and that's if you want to. That's to back some people off of you. But I'm excited about to see what's going to happen in those Division II matchups. Man, what do you think?
No, you make some great points because last year, if you recall, it was a slight win, ever so close, for Strasburg over Pocosin, pulled it out 14-13, and they both came in at 12-1. They're 12-1, 11-1. We felt like Pocosin coming out of that region with Armstrong and TJ was going to be hard, who were very athletic Richmond area teams. And I'm sure Danny can speak on this a little bit because he just watched that game and covered it for us on Virginia Preps and caught up with Elliott Duty at Pocosin, who's got one of the best linemen in the country. He just got offered by Texas a week and a half ago. Carter Jones, two-way stud for Pocosin. They have a guy on the line with him, and Braden Agnes, who was the Bay Rivers District Defensive Player of the Year. And they average almost 300 yards per game running that wing T. But Strasburg, some numbers, guys. They got a kid named Quincy Williams, 1,677 yards, 23 touchdowns. Most impressive thing, no fumbles. Hasn't coughed the ball up once this year. They average 364 yards per game as a team. Where I give Pocosin the slightest of edges, like my simulator says 51%, 49%. It's that tight. Strasburg's got 23 takeaways, but Pocosin's got a guy in James Miller in the secondary who's got 9 interceptions by himself. I think Pocosin will be better equipped to not stop the run, but limit some of the gash plays in the run game. Remember, Armstrong had a very explosive offense, I'm sure Danny can touch on this, that was putting up points galore, and they didn't go off against Pocosin's defense, and they've got athletes and speed. Strasburg has only thrown the football this year 30 times. 30. That's it. 13 completions, 356 yards, 6 TDs, 1 interception. That's going to be the tricky thing. If they can make Strasburg have to complete passes on third down, the other game is a war. Glenver Union, we know about the Union situation, how unfortunate it is. The coach is absent. Community's trying to rally behind those kids and those coaches. Keith Chandler's a workhorse. The thing I'll say about Glenver is 2 things. Number 1, they have the all-time touchdown pass record holder in Brody Doyot, who's now getting healthier after the injury he sustained to end the regular season. He's going to Charlotte, but he can go off and beat you with his arm and his legs, and he plays defensive end. And oh, by the way, that Glenver defense is giving up less than 4 points per game. So I think if you were to have a discussion, best defense in the state statistically across the board to 6 classes, the 3 defenses you're considering are Glenver's in Class 2, Stonebridge is in Class 5, and Varane is in Class 4. And I think Glenver's defense, because of Doyot being such a ballyhooed quarterback, record setter, it gets overshadowed how good that group is defensively, collectively, with a lot of seniors and juniors. So I think they get the nod against Union, because you have to wonder, at some point, all the emotional stuff that Union's gone through, does it eventually catch up in this spot, even though they are at home?
Yeah. Okay. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add to those games, these Class 2 games coming up?
I will say I was really
Go ahead,
impressed. I was really impressed with Pocosin's run game Friday night versus Armstrong. They really just it was a bit of a size disparity. Pocosin's big, I won't say country built, but compared to the City Boys of Armstrong, they were country built. And I felt like that was a big advantage for Pocosin powering through. There were 3 guys, Dum Gallagak, Cody Little, and Austin Conley. They just ran the ball at that defense all night long. If they do that, I don't know a lot about Strasburg, but if they can put that kind of game against them, they give themselves a shot.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So going forward, we're gonna go Class 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'll just ask you all, who do you think can win? Who will win those games, and can they win the state championship? I mean, we've done that. At this point, I believe every team remaining can win.
I was going to say that too, because we usually touch on that. And I was actually talking to my wife about it. Like, when you get down to this time, and I learned this from Dick Adams a long time ago, to win a state championship, it takes guys. You got to have some guys. It takes a solid coaching staff, specifically offensive line and defensive back coach, to help, and it takes a little bit of luck. But everybody has a shot that's still playing right now. Like, everybody legit has a shot and can go on. Yeah. There's some people with some more guys but you got to make it through. You got to stay healthy. You got to, you know what I mean? It takes
Yeah.
all of those little pieces, but everybody has a shot.
You can't somebody could go in there and have 5 or 6 turnovers, and that balances or changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, so Class 3, we've got Magna Vista at Lake Taylor, and we've got Liberty Christian at Kettle Run. Matt, do you want to take the first shot?
I'm looking forward to this game with Lake Taylor Magna Vista. This will be the one I'll be at on Saturday in Norfolk. You got coaches and Hank Sawyer, who's won 3 championships. He's also lost 3 of them at the helm of the Titans in Norfolk. You have Joe Favero at Magna Vista, who won back-to-back championships. I believe that was 2014 and 2015. Nonetheless, though, his offense he's got right now is on pace to set a school record for points. They're averaging 48.9 per game. Oh, by the way, Lake Taylor's averaging 45.3 per game. This feels like team with the ball last is going to win. Lake Taylor's been known of being in these spotlights before, but what's neat about this team for Coach Slayer is he doesn't have that marquee dude that's a Jalen Holmes who's in the NFL or someone of that ilk, that stature, that nature. He has a lot of really good football players, returned a lot from last year's team that had an uncharacteristic 3-7 season. Can run it with Keon Johnson, Jeremiah Farabee. Quarterback Kevin Adams is good. They bring the heat on defense, but I'm not sure either defense stops the other offense because Magna Vista's offense, 43 touchdown passes this year, 40 touchdown runs, and they have 3 players in their quarterback, running back, and receiver, Simeon Moore at Q, Ethan Dukes at running back, and Tay Scott at receiver that have set school records in touchdowns or yards this year. So you got really a triple threat to stop. And I think in a game that's a high-scoring, close game, I think the kicking game is going to matter here. And Magna Vista has not one but 2 good kickers. So this feels like a game that could come down to a kick, an extra point, a blocked kick, a field goal. I'm going to give Magna Vista the nod on the road. But I'll tell you what, going into Norfolk, Lake Taylor's going to be ready. I said to you guys, I think you might remember a few weeks back, I felt the winner of Heritage Liberty Christian was going to win a state championship. And that could still be proven true with Liberty Christian, 2-time defending champ, going on the road to take on an explosive Kettle Run team and what LCA's defense just did to Heritage. But I'm totally sold that the winner of that Lake Taylor Magna Vista game has the offensive firepower just to go win this thing. So I feel like that game is going to be fireworks and fun.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's go around. Dan, if you have anything you know about these teams or anything you want to say, we'll go around. And then if you just tell me your thought, maybe some thoughts, or you could just say who you think would win the game.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I've seen Lake Taylor before. I've never seen Magna Vista, but I did see they beat GW Danville this week, and knowing how good they were, that impressed me. So I wouldn't bet against them. I saw Liberty and Kettle Run last year in the state championship, 2 great programs. I don't bet against Liberty. So, yeah, Liberty and Magna Vista for me.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Coach Abrams.
I'm gonna go ahead and go Lake Taylor over Magna Vista. I think that will be a very interesting game. And then for Liberty Christian and Kettle Run, you know, I want Kettle Run to win this one and avenge, you know, last year's state championship. That's what I would prefer. But I'll go ahead and play the smart man on that one and go ahead and go Liberty Christian.
Right. Jeremiah?
I mean, so Kettle Run in the past 4 years has like progressed 3 out of the 4 times.
Yeah.
And in very unlikely games where you thought that they were going to win. They beat us 4 years ago, went on to down to GW, beat them, and then went to the state championship game. Last year they beat Lafayette to advance, right? In a game that is I mean, they surprised you, and we scrimmaged them this year. I mean, they find a way to put it together, and they're another team that plays like you might play quarterback and defensive end, and we're going to pound you, and then we're going to put the. I mean, they spread, and they have a very, very explosive kid at quarterback and free safety. That's just you know, has the name, the look, and the athleticism. I'm gonna take Kettle Run because they make magic happen. I mean, and it's something. It's like when Trace was at Briar Woods. You didn't expect it. You didn't count them in, but man, like they find a way to win. On the other side, Magna Vista they score points Like, and then they play defense. They're beating people like 66-0. Like, you know what I mean? So they put on a show. The other, I love what Lake Taylor does on offense. If I was ever to get in the saddle again, they run veer, they run dive, they run toss, and they run the quarterback and they fly past you at all of those. I mean, and I love it. I love what they do, but I just see Magna Vista that their guys are a throwback. They're related. You know, there's brothers and cousins, and they're playing for a little bit. I just they play with a little bit of an edge. So and you can check me on past episodes. I said this before. Ethan Dukes is the man at running back. He's not a kid that you want to tackle. You want to get physical with. And I know them people from Norfolk. Shout out to Norfolk. You know what I mean? They take anybody that comes their direction. But my man is pretty good. So I'm taking Magna Vista in that one.
So I'll,
but you can go ahead
I'll
and give your pick.
Yeah, and you're right, Jeremiah. He's about 230. He's thick. He's a grown man, Ethan Dukes. And that quarterback, by the way, for Kettle Run, Dyson Tapscott, younger brother of Jordan. He's a heck of a ball player. Made 9 interceptions as a freshman. I'm going to pick Magna Vista something like 42-41. Please don't get mad at me, Hank Sawyer and his wife Sandra Sawyer, the girls' basketball coach. I'm sure they'll give me a lot of hate if they end up winning, and I have to face the music. But I'm going to go with LCA. The thing about LCA is, they graduated their superstar in Gideon Davidson to Clemson. And I think Frank Rocco's done a nice job of rallying the group to show that we've got a program. We're not a one-man program, even though Davidson was special and Gatorade Player of the Year. Their defense just held a Heritage to 71 total yards of offense for the whole game. And Heritage have been putting up 35 plus on everybody. 22 rushes for 35 yards. 7 of 15 for 36 yards passing. And it went to overtime, and Heritage was going backwards in the overtime. So Kettle Run's got and you're right, they intricate offense. They use their backs, their tight ends so well, the way they motion different things with formations. The way this LCA defense is playing, I don't think their offense is all that, for lack of a better word here, sexy or that pizzazz for LCA, but they're just workmanlike. They've got linemen. I could see them grinding this game out in an ugly type of way, but with defense, which can be the difference for them. And if we get the LCA defense versus Magna Vista offense, or even Lake Taylor offense, my goodness, that'll be a neat chess match.
Shout out Frank Rocco, Penn State University.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was actually a coaching against LCA was my first ever coaching game. I was at a school in Maryland, and we traveled all the way down to play those guys down. And it was my first ever game I coached in, and they beat the bricks off of us. And they fed us and then sent us back to Maryland.
At least they fed you.
Yeah, exactly.
They prayed for us too. And they sent us back.
So for me, I'm homerific. So Lake Taylor. Now I'm 757. I'm hearing all these great things about Magna Vista, but the things I do know about Lake Taylor, their only 2 losses are to Hampton High School and Maury. So they don't play in the strongest of districts, but I still think losing to Maury was 42-14. I know that sounds like a blowout, but that's bad.
For us, I was there. It was 14-14 with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. And then the dam broke. Yeah, so they played Maury a lot better than everybody has. Probably everybody in the state minus Verona. Yep.
I was watching that game. And then the other one, they only lost to Hampton by 6. And Hampton was the Peninsula District champion here. So I think with those being their only 2 losses, and then once they got into the playoffs, they beat some legit teams. Petersburg is a good program, as Danny knows. I'm going to pick Lake Taylor, go 757, and then Kettle Run. We talk about Union, but they had a coaching situation and change and off the field, but it does impact that community of players and fans and family members. They're still on a mission, and that is part of their what has happened in the past year. They were in the state championship game. They've been in state championship games. They played LCA. I think this is the year Kettle Run gets through. I think Kettle Run gets through. When I looked at LCA, if there's going to be a year they're down, this could be it. This might be the year to get them. All right. So I'm going to go Kettle Run and Lake Taylor. Class 4. We are going to discuss Jefferson Forest versus Verina and Lafayette versus Loudoun County. Danny, can you talk to us about Verina?
So Verina, they have 2 losses this season. One to Maury, as you know, by 1 point. That was early in the season. And then Grimsley, a nationally ranked team that they hung with, only lost by a touchdown. I think beefing up their schedule like they did, taking a page out of Highland Springs playbook, has prepared them for these type of games. I think it's why they did as well as they did against Huguenot last week. They averaged 40 points a game, giving up 6 points a game. Defense is their signature. I don't think anybody will discount that. As good as Caleb Weiss is at quarterback, that defense, especially that front seven, is suffocating. With Ja'Shawn Richardson committed to UVA, got Braylon Hood at linebacker. Guy that's not gotten a lot of love this season, but Huguenot felt his presence the other day. Raymond Hudson, he sacked Charles Scott Jr. 3 times. One instance, he did it 2 times in a row. So, yeah. So their defense is what stands out, but they clearly have a good offense if they're scoring an average of 40 points a game. They haven't allowed over 21 points a game. The only team to do that was Grimsley. So, I mean, that speaks to what I say when I talk about their defense. Jalen Walker, 75 tackles. Braylon Hood, 69. They're going to make it tough for Jefferson Forest, and playing at home is definitely an advantage. That crowd is going to be ruckus. I've been to many a Verona game, and they will let you hear it for sure. So I'm looking forward to the game, but I think it's going to be tough on Jefferson Forest.
Okay. All right. Lafayette versus Loudoun County.
The only thing I know is that Lafayette has a Hall of Fame coach, and you don't bet against those Hall of Fame coaches.
All right. Do you
With all
have
due
a
respect to Jeremiah?
Do you have a pick? Oh, so you're picking Lafayette.
I'll pick Lafayette. Yep. Give me Verona and Lafayette.
All right. Sounds good. Coach Abrams.
Oh yeah. I think this Verina Jefferson Forest game is a real interesting, just in terms of the 2 different parts of the state that these guys are coming from. But I think it's hard to beat Verina. I think Verina is probably one of the top 3-5 teams in the state, so I'll go with them in that one. And then for me, I always got to go anytime I get the chance to go anything above exit 126 on 95. I always go ahead and just go roll that way. So I'll go ahead and go Loudoun County in that one.
Okay. LC and Verina, right? All right. I'll go next, and we'll save Matt for last. The simple math for me is Jefferson Forest, my sister-in-law, was a great player there in volleyball and softball. But Verina, I think, is the real deal. I know they lost to Maury, but they still are, with not going by class, they're one of the best, I think, a top 10 team in the state, period. Verina. That being said, I believe that Verina will beat Jefferson Forest, but I would not be surprised if Jefferson Forest wins, because if you look at their record, their only 2 losses are to Liberty Christian, they only lost by 3. All right, and that's the 2-time defending state champ, and to Heritage. That was in overtime, and Heritage beat Liberty Christian once this year, but then lost to them last week. So this Jefferson Forest team can ball, and as we're seeing, the Lynchburg area has some really good teams, really good programs, and so my pick is going to be Verina and Loudoun County to meet in the state championship.
We've thought from day one that Verina was the best team in Class 4. I took some flack from people in the 757 when I put them ahead of Phoebus, and Phoebus beat them last year. As Denny touched on, they're just loaded with talent. Guys like Richardson going to UVA, and Carter, and Hood's an underrated linebacker. Weiss is such a good leader since he got thrust into the fire as a freshman against Highland Springs, and their defense is mighty, mighty good. I will tell you this. I think the Jefferson Forest defense will have a chip on its shoulder because they hear about how great this Verona defense is. And they're only giving up 9.5 points per game coming from that rugged Seminole district. And they've got some ballers and some experienced guys on that defense led by Slade Kesey, the Army committed defensive end, who's named this year the Seminole District Offensive Lineman of the Year. Jefferson Forest is coming off maybe its best game offensively. They scored 49 on GW Danville, but I just don't think they can do that again. And this is with an offensive line that was a makeshift group starting the year, a bunch of kids up from JV, new group, and they're missing Thax Rowland, who is a two-way force for them at linebacker and running back, first team all Seminole District. I think his absence will loom large in this game. And I just think they physically manhandled GW, and I don't think they'll physically manhandle Verina. I think Verona wins this game. It might not be a total blowout. It might be a more competitive battle than some are expecting, but I give Verona the edge. The other game to me is a total toss-up. Lafayette, as you guys know, lost last year in the state semis to Kettle Run. I think it was a bit of a surprise to Andy Lynn and his crew because they got to the championship game the year before against Liberty Christian. They wanted some revenge, some payback from that 28-14 loss, and Kettle Run just kind of handed them their lunch. They go up to Class 4 this year. They lose the game with 4 or 5 turnovers against Pocosin 10-7. They do have a couple of 1,000-yard rushers with Breon Stokes and Joshua Simpson that are key. Their defense, though, we talk about defenses all the time. Look at Lafayette's defense. It is rock solid. They have not given up until the Phoebus game more than 14 points to anybody all year. They gave up 17 to Phoebus. They're giving up 5.8 per game on the year. Of course, Loudoun County has the dynamic running back in Montez Dyson. I think this is a game that goes right down to the wire. I do think the experience of having been there the last couple of years is going to help Lafayette. So I give them it's a lot like Strasburg-Pocosin. I think it can go either way, 21-17, 20-14. Doesn't surprise me if it goes to overtime, but I'm going to give Lafayette the closest of edges. But Loco does have the advantage of playing at home. So, if they do get a lead, I don't know that Lafayette will come back from a deficit in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I haven't been to Loudoun County games the last couple of years, and even this year, that crowd can be big time, and they're going to be out there, and they will be loud. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, so let's go to Class 5. Class 5. I'll start with you, Matt, because we've got Maury playing Stonebridge, and we've got Highland Springs playing Indian River. So we've got 2 7-5-7 teams. And Class 5 is heavy in the 7-5-7. But why don't you give us an overview of those games and your thoughts, Matt?
I'm going to make my friends in the 7-5-7 very mad here. Because when I went night on Friday night, the TV highlights are showing, and the TV broadcasters or sportscasters. This happens in every area code, by the way. This is if you're an 804 guy, 757. You guys, I'm talking about 703. Rusty, you can chime in on this. Christian, you can too. Jeremiah, they always are going to vouch for their teams. And listen, it can happen more at Indian River, but they're like, wouldn't it be cool in all 7-5-7 showdown? You guys might get disappointed it's a non-7-5-7. You could get Highland Springs Stonebridge. Hold on, let me tell you why. Maury is the favorite going in. They're averaging 52.5 points per game. They are arguably as talented as any team in any classification. But the seriousness of the injury to Isaiah Ike Simmons, their all-state linebacker who went down in the third quarter against Kings Fork, he is the heart and soul of that team. 82 tackles, 32 for loss. I hated to see it. He's been one of my favorite kids to interview all year and the last couple of years. I don't know if they can beat Stonebridge without that guy. I don't know if they can. Now, that coaching staff with Doree McCain at the helm and Mike Privet, the D coordinator, who's an all-state stud from his days at Lake Titter for Hank Sawyer, they're going to scheme up and prepare their kids to do it. But you have the electric Maury offense, 52.5 points per game, against this almighty Stonebridge defense. 58 points allowed, 4.8 per game. Literally, Riverbend with its high-octane offense, and Christian, you know them up close personal, that's as electric as an offense is. Outside of the 75-yard jaunt that Camden Simmons had, they had 26 yards from scrimmage the whole game. They've given up 8 touchdowns.
The second touchdown was on special teams.
Correct. Yeah. Of their 8 touchdowns, 6 have been given up by the defense. They gave up a kickoff return against Quince Orchard and the one against Riverbend. 6 touchdowns the whole year. They got 8 dudes that are all district, all region. The defense is flat out ridiculous. So while everybody is just salivating at this Maury offense that Doree McCain's as innovative as a coach there is. He's going to put his receivers, his backs in positions to excel. He's got multiple D1 commits at receiver, led by Elijah Moss Williams going to JMU. He's got an unbelievable running back as a junior in Tayshawn Branch, and a quarterback in Donald Everett who's got 44 touchdowns versus 6 picks. The thing that worries me if I'm Maury is he is a sophomore. He's on the road in Ashburn. Stonebridge wants payback from 2 years ago. I know that was Mickey Thompson. It's now Kedrick Golston. And by the way, if there's a coach that's under as big a spotlight moment in these state semis, and I'm going to say this, it's Kedrick Golston, former NFL defensive lineman, his 2 sons. You got Kedrick II, who's going to Tennessee, not Georgia like Pops went to. You got the other youngster, I think it's Caden, who's a sophomore D-back, who's great. Their defensive backfield is great at Stonebridge. They got 4 D1 dudes in that secondary with Chase Jeter and Langston Pridgeon to go with Golston and Zeke Wimbush. But I'm going to shock some people. I think I'm giving Stonebridge the edge just because of the absence of Simmons, and it's a young quarterback on the road in the spot. And I've told people, I told Maury a few years ago when I said to them, I said, look, that Jacob Thomas is a bad dude. I'm telling you, that Stonebridge defense is nasty. Now, Maury has to have the lead. I don't know if they can come back in this game. You'd say, and it's going to be a fascinating game. The other game, spent so much time on that game, Highland Springs versus Indian River, and Danny can touch this more than I can. Antoine Buddy Richardson is probably the best player that's not getting talked about enough outside of Richmond in the state. He got named Player of the Year in the region on offense and defense. Do you know how rare that is? This guy's got 9 interceptions. He converted from wide receiver to quarterback. So again, all Highland Springs is going to hear about, like I said about Stonebridge with this Maury offense, they're going to hear about this freshman phenom in Lord Malik Carew, who is maybe as good a freshman quarterback we've seen in a while. But now that Highland Springs defense is chomping at the bit, and Buddy Richardson's going to try to make plays with his arm, his legs, and he might try to pick off Carew once or twice. I do think Indian River is better equipped to play this game than they were 10 years ago because that was their first time on this stage, and it is a freshman quarterback, but he has grown up from these battles in the Southeastern District and winning at an undefeated green run last week. But I worry about Indian River's run game, sort of like with, I mentioned with Maury's defense. Their leading rusher, Trey Pugh III, did not play last week against Green Run, so they had to split the carries with Simeon Battle and another back, and I'm forgetting his name, Rashard Pope. So if you're running back by committee against the Highland Springs defense, I'm not so sure about it. Whereas the Springers got a nice 1-2 punch, Jonathan Carter, Eric Byrd. I give the Springers the nod by about 10-12. I think it's a good game, but I think they pull away late.
Okay. Danny, since one of these teams is you, I know you're on top of Highland Springs. You want to go?
Yeah. So, like Matt said, they do have a 1-2 punch in Byrd and Carter. I equate Byrd to a bowling ball. He will just come rolling down at you, and when he gets those feet going, you're not stopping him. He's got 14 touchdowns this season, almost 1,200 yards rushing. You know, Highland Springs, for me, covering the area has been a bit of an enigma because you look at them and you go, well, it's Highland Springs, but they got 3 losses. That's not Highland Springs football. But Highland Springs football is more than just winning all your games. It's for moments here in December. Yep. Lauren Johnson and December football just go hand in hand. Highland Springs football go hand in hand. You know, those 3 losses I speak of, they're the teams that are combined 31-6. You know, Dinwiddie, Verona, you know, so they're not losing to a bunch of nobodies. Just when you think Highland Springs is kind of the shine is coming off, here they are. Defense is getting better. I had them for the season. Their average defense is giving up 14 points a game. In the playoffs, they're giving up 9. So they're getting better at the right time when you want to be playing your best ball. Simmons backfield with Buddy Richardson. Richardson has 519 yards rushing. That's something I don't think gets talked about enough is his ability to do, like Matt alluded to, both run and pass, and obviously what he does on defense. So I know it's 10 years later, it's a different team, but it's hard to bet against Lauren Johnson in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you've got Highland Springs. Any thoughts on Maury Stonebridge?
Oh, how do you pick? You know,
I know.
you know, you've got three of the best programs over the last 10 years playing in
Right,
this
that's what I was going to say. Thanks. I
one
should have gone
class.
first. Go ahead.
So I don't know. Gosh.
Flip a coin.
I've seen Maury. I haven't seen Stonebridge, but I also know Stonebridge almost lost. Gosh, I don't know. Give me Stonebridge.
Okay. I think that sounds good to me. Okay. All right, Stonebridge and Highland Springs. Coach
If for
A.
no other reason than just to see another Highland Springs Stonebridge state championship.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Okay.
and I was gonna say Danny's the man.
Yeah.
Danny's the new Jay Golston. Danny's always right.
There you go. Danny's always right.
Danny's
And
always
look,
right.
now we talk about uh, those two teams in the state championship, but between Highland Springs, Maury, and Stonebridge, Matt, you could probably do it right off the top of your head, but in the last 10 years, they probably have 80% of the state championships in Class 5, right?
Yeah, who's
They
coming through on the
do.
radio? How many people use the sideline radio on those staffs? How many?
We use it, but we don't try to let people know.
So it's funny you say that. So I was just telling somebody the other day, Maury and Stonebridge have played three championship games at three different college D1 schools in the state. 2019, it was at Hampton. Maury won 28-21. They were up 28-0, and Stonebridge came roaring back, but Keandre Lambert Smith, who's now with the LA Chargers, helped lead Maury on a long drive to finish the game. 2021 was the memorable Jacob Thomas, now at JMU, to Zeke Wimbush touchdown pass,
Yeah.
27-21. They won on the final play coming back at Old Dominion. And then just a couple years ago in 2023, it was 45-34. Maury won it at UVA. You were there, Rusty. We talked about it. Maury was about to boat race him, and then Stonebridge came back and made it
Yeah.
interesting, and they held him off. So this is the first time in his semifinal round those two will have hooked up. In terms of Maury versus Highland Springs, if we do get that matchup, Maury lost its first four times to Highland Springs ever. They gave up 71 points in 2018, which was Doree McCain's second year. State
Mhm.
semifinals, lost to him 13-0. In the state semifinals, I believe that was the COVID shortened year. And then they lost to him in the championship game at ODU. Maury was missing Peyton Jones,
Yeah.
33-19. Maury beat him the last 2 years regular season. And then as far as the Highland Springs Stonebridge trilogy goes, and that's got all kinds of drama trilogy, and
Yeah.
they played twice, I think, in the same calendar year. In fact, so that series is currently stuck at 4-2 in Highland Springs' favor. They've met four times in the championship, twice in the state semifinals of the playoffs, and they've had games decided by 5, 3, 2, 6, and 11. So those tend to go down to the wire.
So listen, this is where I come in and I make my pick because it is going to be Highland Springs versus Stonebridge, and a highly anticipated rematch. I'll say this is that and I was on last week's episode talking about how they were going to pound the ball. Riverbend was going to come in and they were going to run the ball, and versus this great secondary. Where you ask secondary guys to make tackles, very familiar with this. You're going to pack it in, so you're going to ask your corners and your safeties to make tackles in the run game, and their secondary flying around
Yeah.
making tackles in the backfield. They sent pressure from the weak side and they sent Kendrick Golston to the front side and they contained it and they're hitting it at all these different angles. Everybody's making tackles. You can see on the last play of the game when they missed the field goal, you see the guy go and hurt his shoulder and he's rolling around on the ground. Everybody's celebrating. That's playoff football. Like it's always going to be something that's hurt and is going through. And those kids they're poised to make it happen. I mean, I saw a little different crew when I watched that game. I was watching it online. When I watched that Stonebridge game, I saw a little different crew on that Friday, and,
Yes,
and
sir.
they had a definite edge about themselves. They got a D1 secondary for a reason. But
Yes.
that's not to slight the front. at all. And then I go back to this, man. It's a little different when you're coaching your kid. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I know that. I know that
yeah.
for say there's a different conversation that happens at home.
At least two coaches have kids on that team.
Absolutely.
Peter and Ghost.
Absolutely. And so that's why I say that. And again, I think last week I picked against Coach Johnson. I'm not sure, but again I go way back to Stonewall Jackson with him. Now Unity Reed and he's turned it on. And you can see in that game. I watched the highlights from that game. He's activated. You flip back in your manual and say, okay, all right, that I got that. We got an answer for that one. And so those two, I see those two meeting in the state championship game.
Yeah, yeah. Coach Abrams?
Yeah, Stonebridge really impressed me defensively last week, which I already knew they were really good in the secondary. But like Coach Davis said, to see those guys flying down and making plays in the backfield, Maury, that's gonna be a really good game. The funny enough, I picked Riverbend to win last week, but I feel Stonebridge is just because of how good their secondary and their defense is more equipped to beat a team like Maury. So in this one, I'm gonna go Stonebridge in a real close one, another great game. And then for Indian River Highland Springs, I don't think it'll be the dominant showing that it was 10 years ago. I think Indian River's got some like that quarterback. Obviously, he's going to be a stud overall as his career goes on, right? But I think Highland Springs, Coach Johnson, I think this is that moment. I think, like Lewis said up there, it's just that time of year for them where it just they find a way to win these games. So I'll go Highland Springs, I'll go Stonebridge, and we'll get that in the state championship.
Oh, all right. Yeah, as much as I want to be and just say, hey, let's have a 7-5-7 final. I'm from there, and those teams are both great. Man, I legitimately am like, I don't know. Any of the again, we know at this time of year anybody can win, but Stonebridge is a hard place to win in the playoffs. I am telling you, it's not just the crowd, but it's atmosphere, but it's also they never give up. You know, like they never like some teams you see them in their heads, like, but they never gave up. And the thing I like about Stonebridge also is that they don't show you everything in the first half, and that is so hard when you don't play that type of offense, and then you have been gearing up for it, but half the stuff they're doing in the first half is just to set up what they're going to hit you with in the second half.
Yeah.
You know, you might be like, "Oh, we stopping it. We stopping it." Next thing you know, we stopped this going left, and then somebody took a reverse handoff and ran the other way.
The
And
the
so
knock the
that's
knock
really
on
hard.
Stonebridge though has been their offense. It's been the lack of
Yeah.
creativity. It's been very bland. The focus has been on defense. The best
Mhm.
call in that game is they're down on the goal line. They run like a sprint out right, and it's a draw. Right? And
Yeah.
then you ain't nobody, don't nobody, first off, nobody runs sprint draw. But then they ran sprint draw on the goal line to the tight end. He folds it back, and that's a big dude. He's number
Yeah.
4. That's a big sucker, man. He folds back in, boom, touchdown. You get it in the end zone, and like that, they put it in. I mean, they stepped up. Their coaching staff has stepped up their game and to get it rolling.
The real quick
Yeah.
thing, Jeremiah, is I'd say about that is I would have, and I'll say as full disclaimer, I would have picked Maury to win it very, very close if Ike Simmons was healthy because I'm like you. I thought Stonebridge's offense was just ordinary, not extraordinary. Their defense is extraordinary. And without Simmons, I don't know if Maury's defense is. I mean, even Danny, you saw it. Verino was able to run the ball effectively on Maury's defense. This is a
Mhm.
year where they're a little bit younger in that defensive front. Now, Doree McCain is a brilliant offensive mind. If his quarterback goes out there and is able to get an early lead on Stonebridge, I don't know if the Bulldogs can come back from 2 scores
Yep.
down having to throw it.
That's what I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to say if Maury can get up, it's going to be hard for Stonebridge to keep staying and keep up. Again, the team doesn't quit. They're playing at home. I just think though, Coach Goldston had a great season, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Maury. And then when it comes to Highland Springs, Indian River, man, as much as I would maybe like to see Indian River get the win being from 757. No, I've learned I'm not going to bet against Highland Springs and Coach Johnson. So I've got Maury playing Highland Springs in the state championship. But of course, anything can happen. All
Hey,
right.
Rusty,
By the
I'll
way,
give you one nugget here that I completely forgot about, and I just double checked it. Highland Springs is 16-0 at home in the playoffs since they opened up their new stadium.
Wow.
Whoa!
Wow.
I didn't know
That's
that.
a great nugget.
That's a good one.
Very good one. Thank you,
By the way, I was
Danny.
going to say, I think the most amazing thing would be is if Indian River, which I don't think anybody's going to pick this, they've had a great year. If they somehow, some way got out of this bracket and beat Highland Springs in the winner of Maury Stonebridge with a freshman quarterback to win a Class 5 championship, you talk about shocking to people. That would be
Yes.
something
Yes.
unheard of. And that nugget, Danny, reminded me of the one that I got told the other day. I didn't realize this about going to that Lake Tenor Magna Vista game. Hank Sawyer is a perfect 6-0 in the state semis, and the school was a perfect 7-0 because they beat GW Danville back in the early '80s. So you got two big things in play there. Highland Springs' home streak and Lake Taylor in the state semis. Two things, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now and we've said this for a couple of weeks now. Class 5, Class 4 has so much talent. Just think that Richmond area, those top 4 teams in that region in Class 4 in Richmond area, could be also considered top 4 teams in the state in Class 4. And only one team
power ratings. They had the 4 highest power ratings.
They had the best. And Coach Davis mentioned that. That's right. They sure did. All right. Class 6. Class 6. Now, I want to make this very clear. Class 6 is the highest classification, but not because of talent or just because of these teams are necessarily they have bigger enrollment numbers, but they can fluctuate. And so, some of these teams have gone up and down over the years. Phoebus was 3, now they're 4. Highland Springs has gone up and down. They were Class 6 and played Freedom for the state championship, 2 or 3 years ago at UVA. So we're going Class 6, but it doesn't mean these 4 teams are the best 4 teams in the state. And I just want people to realize that. It might have been a little different when it was single A, triple A, double A, single, double, and triple A. Maybe this, but I know right now these Class 6 teams are good, but there's some really great teams in Class 4. But I want to start with you, Coach Abrams, since you're in that North Stafford building and you're a 540 guy.
Yeah. So first of all, we got North Stafford and West Springfield. This is a very interesting game for a couple reasons.
Come on, man. Don't sugarcoat it. You're in the building. Speak that, talk that talk.
First of all, I think it's real funny. These two teams, they share the same color. Coach Parker and his 2 sons. I did bring up Coach Darnell Parker. There's also Wesley Parker, who also coaches on that West Springfield staff. And like Coach Davis brought up, those guys are all in the North Stafford community, and they're playing North Stafford today. So or this week. So it's going to be a really very interesting game. I did catch a little bit of West Springfield's game against Lake Braddock. And I was, I expected it to go that way. And they look like they have a really good team. They're really well coached. But it's going to be tough. Even with, Kanaz Sullivan, who did go out early in last week's game, as I talked about earlier. I just think that, Chase Sullivan, the quarterback, who's been amazing all year getting it to the athletes. Ricky Atkins is another receiver. Antoine Barnes, who's really an underrated receiver, I would say, for North Stafford. He doesn't get talked about a lot, but he's made plays almost in every game that they've played this year. And I really just trust the defense for North Stafford to just fly around and make enough plays in that game. So I feel West Springfield, they're not going to come in, be intimidated, and just go quietly. They're a good team. They're a regional championship team. But I do feel North Stafford will wear on them, and it'll be too much speed. They'll win that game by 2 scores. And then for Madison and Oscar Smith, I think I think this one's real interesting. Madison really impressed me the way that they came out, and that's it. Really, just the second quarter. It was really it wasn't really even the first half as much. It was the second quarter where they kind of just schemed up some of their best plays against Westfield. They hit on all four of them, and then they kind of just coasted with their defense because they knew that their defense was good enough to stop Westfield all game, which was very impressive to me. However, on the other side of the field, you just so happen to have Oscar Smith, who has, D1 quarterback, D1 athletes, and just talent all over the field. So even though Oscar Smith has got to go on this, drive up to Madison, which their fans are not happy about the drive that they have to take. They think it's a conspiracy against them. But even though they're upset about it, I think they'll be just fine. I know Madison has gave them a lot more of a challenge than anybody expected them to last year in the state championship. One important piece of that, I think we all know, isn't on that team this year, which is Dominic Nicely. He graduated. This will be kind of like that North Stafford West Springfield game in that I think that, again, obviously Madison's not going to come in intimidated or afraid of these guys, and they'll be at home. But I think over time it'll just be too many big plays by Oscar Smith, and they'll win that game in kind of a similar fashion.
Yeah. Danny.
All right. So I'll just preface as saying I don't know much about these schools because I don't have a lot of 6A schools in our area. I do know Oscar Smith put a hurting on Thomas Dale. That Thomas Dale defense is better than what it looked like just looking at the score. So if Oscar Smith can do that to Thomas Dale, I like their chances against Madison. Yeah. As far as the other side, again, not knowing much about them, but give me North Stafford. I've at least seen them play before. I've never seen West Springfield, but yeah, let's go with North Stafford on that other side of the bracket.
All right, Coach Davis, you're familiar definitely with West Springfield and Madison. So you want to give me your thoughts on these two games?
I think that these are two great. I think actually they're the best matchups in the state in this round as state caliber games. They both could be state championship games that are played in the previous round before the state champion. I mean, the Madison versus Smith game, like that's going to be, and I hear the argument from them having to travel up, but people have had to travel down. So you've had to travel down back when the state championship was at Hampton. You just had to go down there just because that's where it was located.
Thank you.
When it was at ODU, you just had to go down just because it was there.
Yes.
Yep.
To play Maury at ODU is a joke. Come on now.
And by the way, don't forget about in basketball where C.G. Woodson, Doug Craig's Cavaliers had to go down there to Chesapeake to play a state semifinal in basketball, and they actually beat them there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you know what I mean? That's like having to play Robinson at George Mason. Like, you know what I mean? Like you everybody gonna pull up to that game, right? So it's gonna be neat, right? To see those fans come up here to come to Madison where they get it going. I mean, they get it going, and they're not nice. They're not nice. Like it's not nice to go play over there. They're not nice. The players aren't nice. The coaches don't really like you. They let it be known that they're there to win a football game and they turn it on, and it's going to be cool. They bring your tiger cage. Cool. They're going to walk out that building the same way, right? And they're going to take on all comers. I would love to be in that atmosphere because they're going to be. I know the Warhawks are going to be Warhawk proud, and they're going to get beat. So and they're going to get run right over by Oscar Smith. Now, they're going to play them tough. They're going to play them the whole game. Those guys will play with fingers hanging out and arms, shoulders. I've coached against them where they play they will give you 4 quarters. And they've been playing together since youth league, since Vienna Youth League. They've been coached that way all the way up.
Yep.
But again, they're going to lose. And they're going to take Oscar Smith going to take that trophy and hop right on 66 and go on back down the way. On the other side, I've touted West Springfield from the beginning, and to make a run, and they've made that run, but Now you're going against a little different caliber of folk when you get down to North Stafford. You're just a little bit different caliber of dude that's down there. I think they can't get interested in the first half because of unfamiliarity. Coaches will have to play it safe. You're going to have to, take control of the ball, play field position, and then the fireworks start to hit. And I say a North Stafford versus Oscar Smith showdown in the state championship and let it roll.
Yep.
All right. I'll save you for last, Matt. Uh, People are, and I'm one of the ones that's complaining. I'm so glad they switched the semifinal, the regions that play each other, because I'm one of the guys that says, "Oh, Fairfax, all they automatically going to get somebody in the championship game, and then once they get there, anybody can win." But do not be surprised if we have an all Fairfax final. I'm telling you, I was at that, and I was doing media last year at JMU when Madison took Oscar Smith to overtime. We all assumed Oscar Smith was just going to come in and blow them out. Like, they started great, but Madison never quits. And I'm going to tell you one thing I noticed about Madison. I called one of their games this year. I mentioned that before, them playing Oakton on Halloween night. It was a rivalry game. And at that, going into that game, they were 4-4. But if you look at all their losses, were to close. They were very close, and then they got revenge on Westfield and Centerville. Madison is very well coached. They're very disciplined. And I go back to Madison playing Freedom in the state championship at ODU when Freedom won its first championship. I called that game for Prince William Sports and Entertainment, since we had a Woodbridge team, a Prince William team in the final. And the thing that Madison tackles, and they take the perfect pursuit routes. They're not going to make mental mistakes. They're going to play very disciplined, and they're going to do what they do. They're not going to make the bad turnover. They're not going to go for two when they don't need to. They're going to just play how they need to play to win. And I'll tell you that running back, I didn't have his name right last, but Matthew Weiler. I said he was 6'2". He is 6'4", and every bit of it. He is 6'4", 225. And that's taller than Derrick Henry. And he will lay you out if you just, it takes, he's not fast, but he has good speed. And when they go heavy and he's the one getting the ball in that heavy package, it's like money. Like, it's every carry is 7 to 8 yards. Every carry. Say all that to say, I believe Oscar Smith, when I went back and I was talking about Class 6 being the biggest, not necessarily always the best team, I think this Oscar Smith team is the best football team in the state. All classifications. They remind me of the team that beat Madison in the state championship 4 years ago with all of that talent, the safety that went to Clemson, the quarterback that went to Kansas. No, he was supposed to go to Kansas. Originally signed with ODU.
Yeah.
Ethan Vasco. He went from Kansas to Coastal Carolina. Now he's at Liberty. He's been all over the place.
Yeah. Liberty, right? Exactly. Okay, yeah. But all of that, I would not be surprised if we got a Madison West Springfield state championship. But I'm going to go with Oscar Smith. But it will be just like that. It will be very, very close. And if Oscar Smith goes in there too confident, doesn't take care of their business, they could lose. But I'm going Oscar Smith, and I'm going to go with North Stafford again. I've seen them 3 times this year. I think them being at home and their firepower to score in a lot of different ways. They have really good athletes. If they can minimize any turnovers or boneheaded mistakes, I think North Stafford should win. Be North Stafford versus Oscar Smith in the state championship, and then we just go, whoa. All right, so those are my calls, Matt.
I have a question and a comment before I give you my analysis picks here. My first comment to Coach Davis. You talking about the parents being ruthless. I was watching the Madison Westfield game on NFHS. I don't know who the lady was for Westfield. Some mom, she was off the chain. So some of those Concord parents, they are off the chain at times.
Yep.
Coach Abrams on the North Stafford. I had that game on with Woodbridge. You mentioned Kanaz Sullivan getting hurt.
Mhm.
I'm guessing he's out. Now I also saw or heard that Chase, the quarterback, got hurt. What's his status? Is he healthy for this game, or is he
So
up in the
I
air?
think it's kind of up in the air, but I think he'll
Okay.
most likely they'll find he's more healthy than definitely way
Kanaz.
more healthy than Kanaz was after his hit, but he's more
Okay.
most likely going to play.
So he's more game time probable, whereas Kanaz could be more doubtful. I got you.
Right, exactly.
So with that in mind, I'll tackle that game first. I think this could be a fun game. As you saw, North Stafford got the big lead. Woodbridge came back with the offense. I think West Springfield and Coach Davis, you sold me on them because that was a team I did not have high on my rankings or looked at, but they've gotten better and better. And it's hats off to Coach Parker, his staff, and those kids with that offensive trio of Scotty Lewis at quarterback, Dylan Booby Wickham, love that kid at running back, and then the receiver, Javon Austin. They've got 8 all-district guys, 5 on offense, 3 on the defense. A couple of those guys will be back. But I think, as we've sort of touched on, there are certain teams that kind of get to a point where they've maxed out. And I sort of wonder if they're hitting that maxed out point, maybe like Indian River in Class 5, getting here, winning that Occoquan region, beating Lake Braddock twice. Is this kind of their max out point? In North Stafford's case, we know how quick strike they are, the talent, the athletes they got. The player that's stunned me how good he is, and watching his film more, is this Corey Lawrence for them. He's got 27 sacks.
Yeah.
This guy's a monster. And I don't know how you block him. He's coming off 4 sacks, the strip sack. Obviously, I think it was the Hobby Hubbard kid who had the 3 big takeaways, a couple for scores.
Yeah.
They're now ripping the ball
One-
away. Was it? Yeah. So they're not ripping the ball away. So if you're getting takeaways, I don't know if you turn the ball over against them and they're scoring like that. It could be kind of an uphill game for West Springfield. I think they'll be in the game, but I think it's going to be kind of the cat and mouse. You're trying to catch them. So I give North Stafford the edge. I think West Springfield will handle itself well and acquit themselves well, but I think it's going to be North Stafford moving on. They got out of that region with Woodbridge and with Battlefield and with Colonial Forge. Feels like it's finally their time. Remember, they were knocking on the door for years under Joe Mangano, and now they're having a chance. They lost that heartbreaker to Lake Taylor in a state semi. I think it was Marquise Poole hitting the game-winning field goal. The Smith-Madison game, Rusty, it's interesting to me because last year I told people I thought it was a toss-up game. I really did. They said, no, Smith's blown it up before. I said, no, this Madison team's for real. Dom Nicely's the truth. This Madison team, I have the utmost respect for Justin Counts as a coach. What he gets out of his kids, the way they tackle, how hard they play with Luke Salvosa leading the defense at linebacker, with the running of Matthew Weiler, Ricciardiello, I'm going to butcher his name, the fullback who's just an old school throwback player, and the way they had the wrinkle to come out and throw the ball against Westfield when everybody expected to run. They hit their plays. Yeah. That being said, I think this has the makings to be a throttling. Oscar Smith right now, the way they played last Friday against Thomas Dale, and Danny touched on it, the Dale defense was legit. And they made them look like second. They look like JV. And that's unbelievable to see because they played a perfect game. Now, the one concern, if you're Oscar Smith, is, and this happens in playoffs, this happens in the pros and the colleges and the high schools, when you play as close to a perfect game and you have no penalties for a half, 1 for the game, 530 yards, when you're counting the return yardage, you outgain somebody 437 to 64 with 20 first downs to 4 is, do you come out now smelling yourself, feeling yourself in your flat? Because if they do that against Madison, they're in trouble. You don't want to do that against Madison. It's the wrong team. That said, I just don't think they have the athletes to match with Lonnie Andrews and Travis Johnson, that air attack and Charles McGlown. So this, to me, I mean, I never put anything past Madison, but I just feel like this is not the great matchup. This is more like the matchup when they got blown out than it is. I think this is Smith's time. And the way they played on Friday, and I wouldn't have said it before Friday, they're playing as well as anybody in the state, any classification. They've got that mystique and aura back, and they're finally healthy on defense. Because if you look at Smith closely, they had a game late in the season where they gave up 38 points to Great Bridge. But they were banged up on defense, and Great Bridge actually played well in the game. They've gotten healthy now. That defense is at a different level right now. They're taking the ball away. They're swarming. I think it's Smith's time. And I would be surprised if Smith doesn't hoist the Class 6 championship. To me, they're about as strong a favorite. I'd say it's between Smith and 6 and Verona and 4 to win the championship across the board.
Okay. All right. Now, one thing I want to point out, and this is to back what you're saying, Matt. I think Oscar Smith has also been the most dominant team in all of the playoffs. Most teams have played at least one close game. A lot of the games these last 2 rounds have been close. But Oscar Smith has won. They beat Western Branch, okay, a city rival, 56-7. They beat Byrd 50-zip, and they beat Thomasdale 48-7. So they have outscored their opponents, which should be at the toughest time of the year, 154-14. They've only given up 14 points in the playoffs and scored 154. That shows you Oscar Smith's dominance, and that's why I say this could be the best team in the state. But you're right. If they have turnovers and they start getting a little nervous or whatever, anything can happen. I agree, and I think Oscar Smith wins, but I wanted to just add those last points. What we'll do now is the last word with Rusty Byrd. We'll go around, and I've learned not to go last, so I'm going to have Jeremiah go last because he breaks it down. Anyway, we're going to start with you, Danny. Your first time on the show. Anything you want to close us out with? Any thought?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Boy, this could go a lot of different directions, but I think we just need to cherish these next 2 weeks because it's amazing to me how quick the season goes each year. I feel like I was just writing previews and now we're getting ready to wrap it up. So, if you are not going out to a game this weekend, shame on you because it's going to be gone before you know it.
Yes. Coach A.
Yeah. So going to be a lot of good games this week. Going to be a lot of hard fought games and competition. My only message is no matter what the result is, if your team wins, go celebrate with your players, go celebrate with your teammates, with your coaches. Seen a couple of times, really in several spots, sometimes, they'll be taunting after the game to the other side. Both sides worked hard to get to the point where you guys are at, especially now late in the season. You're on the doorsteps of state championship appearance. You win the game, go celebrate with your teammates and your coaches. Don't do anything silly that could even risk you not even getting a chance to play in that state championship the next week, So that's my message. Go out there, compete hard, and go celebrate with your team.
All right. And I'll go next, and I'll save Matt and then Jeremiah for last. So what I want to say is and I like having my show because I can do this and I want others to feel emboldened to say or do things like this. But I'm going to come from the Bible, from the Word of God. I'm going to go with 1 Corinthians 9:24-25. Has been the scripture verse for my Team Jesus, my sports ministry I created over 20 some years ago. And that is, do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. You're in your training right now. You're practicing. You've been training for 15 weeks, okay? One team is going to get the prize. What will you do to get the prize? You have been training all this time. Listen to what the coaches said. Listen to what, your teachers say. Get your sleep. Eat right. One team gets the prize. Make sure you are doing everything you can to get the prize. But if you don't get the prize, I want to see you lift your head up. But if you cannot, coach posted a video about his team losing to Verina. What I see, and I saw this in the stands in several games of teams that have lost this year, the second that game is over, they have nothing good to say about the teams or the coaches. And all they're doing is complaining. And maybe they don't say that in front of their student athletes when they get home, but probably they do. Let's just support and give praise, nothing but praise. When you've got a program like Huguenot, which I in the 804, 4 years ago, over a 2-year period, it only won. From what I understand, it was about 4 games, but now is playing for a regional championship against one of the best teams in the country in Verina. there should be nothing but praise and uplift for those efforts. But there's a lot of time that these coaches, these players, and these parents put into football. And to get to this point, you are all great. Remember, they are competing in this game. They went into strict training, and they are all going for a prize. It's the last word from Rusty Byrd. Matt.
Very powerful, good stuff there, Rusty. One of the harder things for me to write on our website on Virginia Preps in the last month was the passing of two area football coaches in Tidewater. John White at Bayside High School, 43 years of age. And full disclosure, I spoke to Coach White almost just about once a week at least. And Coach Ray Colston of Kempsville, who I got to see literally less than 2 nights before his shocking and untimely passing, much like Coach White's. He was 42 years of age. John was 43. And it's shaken those communities. But it goes to a little bit of what you guys said. Is for all these kids out there, the parents, the fans, these coaches put a lot, and Coach Davis and Coach Abrams, you guys know this. You put a lot of thankless hours into this for very little pay. And that you're making memories and you want to cherish them. And life is so precious. So enjoy these moments. Danny talked about it. This season flies by quickly. I mean, boom, it starts in August and it's gone. December's here, it's done. And I can't tell you, just even the grieving of those communities and those families, I keep them in my thoughts and prayers. And, what's going on there in Southwest Virginia with that coach that's been absent and that undefeated team, one of just 2 remaining unbeaten. So, again, it's precious. Savor the moment and don't have any regrets, be it in life, be it in playing the game of football.
Thank you, Matt.
I'm gonna leave you guys with this. It's a poem. It couldn't be done by Edgar Albert Guest. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with the chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face if he worried he hit it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Somebody scoffed, "Oh, you'll never do that. At least no one ever has done it." But he took off his coat and he took off his hat, and the first thing we knew, he'd begun it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quitted, he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just start to sing and you'll tackle the thing that couldn't be done, and you'll do it. That's my last word.
All right. Look, that was amazing. Thank you, guys. So for Danny Lewis, Coach Abrams, Coach Davis, and my dog, Matt Hatfield, representing the 757, this has been the last word with the Bullpen. We are out.
That last word we don't play. DMV heat coming straight your way. No visit to the 757, we ride. Rusty Byrd got the Bullpen live on. Let run DMZ mic hot, game tight. Rusty B and the crew bring the real to the mic. From the field to the court, from the fate to the fun. We talk ball, talk life, yeah, all in one. Pop culture, movies and a little bit of soul. Team Jesus in the game, that's how we roll. Coaching, mentoring, calling the plays. Rusty's been repping for years. That's just a phase. The last word we don't play. DMV heat coming straight your way. No viva to the 757, we ride. Rusty Byrd got the Bullpen live.